Hey there, this is Brian Kajagian with ClassicRockHistory.com, and today I am very excited to have with me here Greg T. Walker, a legendary rock and roll bassist, one of the founding members of the great Southern rock band Blackfoot. He was one of the early members of the band Lynyrd Skynyrd, and he has a new smoking band called Two Wolf, who have just released a cranking rock and roll album. We're going to talk a lot about that today. Greg, it's nice to have you here today, Greg.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So there's one question I wanted to ask you because um, in the bio that I read about you and promoting your album, it says blending deep Southern roots with a modern hard rock edge. And I get that. I get that sound. But for someone who's younger, how would you explain what Southern rock is? Not
The
easy,
early
right?
Southern rock was probably, with the Allman Brothers especially,
Mhm.
that had a lot of the slower blues infusion,
Yeah.
um, and some of the Skinner stuff influenced slightly. I never cared for the blues only because it's kind of depressing. I'm like, let's go forward in life.
Yeah.
So I never quite got the blues base. Even the British artists say that about American blues. And even the hard rock bands over there go, yeah, we were influenced by American blues. I'm like, Deep Purple was? You're right. Deep, are you kidding me? You guys are rocking. So I'm
Yeah.
not sure about that.
It's hard to explain. I mean, growing up, I'm born in 61, so I grew up in the 70s. I went to high school in the 70s. Bands like Skinner were huge, Allman Brothers band. I
Mm-hmm.
did an interview with Warren Haynes, and he was really trying to push the whole idea behind jazz soloing in the Allman Brothers. He thought that the Allman Brothers band, really was based
Yeah.
on a lot of jazz stuff. But there's a sound, when you listen to bands from that era, Marshall Tucker, Outlaws, Charlie Daniels band, there's a certain sound to it that someone who grew
Mm-hmm.
up then understands. But putting it into words, that's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, the bands you just mentioned, a lot of shuffle beats, kind of pull things back, a lot of heart and soul and feeling.
Yeah.
I always consider Blackfoot from day one to be more of a hard rock band.
Yeah.
We draw from influences, yes, but our first gig was 6 nights a week for 6 months. That's a lot of playing.
Yes, it is.
And
That's
we were doing a lot of British music at the time. See, back then you had to play all covers and you had to have one or two new songs at least once a week, or you got bumped, another band came in. We lasted 6 months. So we were doing Uriah Heep, Wishbone Ash, Deep Purple. Nobody had ever heard of them over here yet. These were import albums. We go to a record store and flip through the bins and go, that's an interesting cover. And then turned out to be what I just mentioned. Jeff Beck, huge fan of him. So we gravitated more towards the harder edge, but still with melody and structure.
so,
Not so much blues based.
so you're describing, the life of a cover band, playing nightclubs, because
That's
that's
what
what you
we
do.
did. Mm-hmm.
You're probably playing 4 or 5 sets a night, right? 4 or 5.
Five,
Yeah.
6 nights a week at
Yeah.
the same place for 6 months.
Yeah.
And
Well,
before that, we were playing 7 nights a week for 3 months in another club.
yeah.
So you get good really fast. That's all you do is play music.
Yeah, it's really where you develop your chops, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I guess the nice thing about having a residency like that is you don't have to break down every night, right?
Right.
As opposed to, I did that too. I worked in cover bands all throughout the 80s, but most of the time we had to break down every night and go to a new club the next night.
Yeah. It was nice when you just walked in the next day and turn the amps on and go,
Yeah.
count it off, let's go.
Did you enjoy playing covers?
Yeah, at the time before we began writing originals, which happened early on, I mean, within the first few months, we were already sneaking in one of our songs
Yeah.
in two and three, and then Never got 50-50, but we did 30% originals because the crowd liked it. And we
So
kind
this
of
is
had
the
a
origins
built-in
of
fan base.
Blackfoot as a cover band.
Blackfoot, yeah.
I didn't know that.
Uh, we were playing the same place, Comic Book Club in Jacksonville.
Uh,
And once in a while, when we would get a one-off gig, then Skinner would come in. They were still called the 1%, and they would play a few nights in a row. And
wow,
they did the 7 nights a week too, a couple of times. We
wow.
did it all the time. So we
Yeah,
were all friends. The Almonds, we were all friends back then.
it's not an easy life, but then again, you think, you know what, you're getting paid playing music, which is a lot better than getting paid, mowing lawns or building, working on the highway,
Yeah, exactly.
So there's
Getting
trade-offs
paid to
with
do what
everything.
you love to do.
Absolutely.
What a
I've
bonus.
I've always said that. I've always felt that the success of a musician is if you can make a living at it. I mean, that's the first success.
Hard.
Yeah, it's not easy to do. Um, I think the only people that do that are the people that their heart and soul won't allow them to do anything else. Like,
Yeah, and, those early days too, we always, we all lived in one house and we had one vehicle between all of us. You couldn't get away from each other, so you had to like each other.
right.
And when you're 18 years old, you're going through the growing pains, you're trying to mature and all that. And it's common to get aggravated with a bandmate because they leave hair in the sink or don't wash the dish out that they ate out of, and all that juvenile stuff. But that quickly goes away. You figure it out.
Sure. I mean, and musicians are a different breed of people, because musicians are so focused on their craft, right? Developing that skill that a lot of basic stuff kind of gets left
Mhm.
aside,
Yeah,
you
exactly.
know? And only musicians can really kind of understand that.
And the great thing about those early days too, and not only us, many of the bands at that time in that era, because you played a lot of covers, mostly covers, you got to draw from those influences. Like we would do, a Jimi Hendrix song, and then turn around the next one would be, song by the Association, a love ballad.
Sure.
And turn around and do Deep Purple, who nobody had heard of, and then a Three Dog Night ballad. So we were all over the chart from A to Z. And
Yeah.
all those influences, unknowingly at the time, helped shape what we became pretty quickly within 6 months. We were making our own music and had our own identity.
Yeah, you could hear all of that in Blackfoot's music, you know, all those different bands that you were talking about,
Mm-hmm.
and I love the association and those beautiful melodies.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, Three Dog Night, those harmonies, and the band never got enough credit, I thought, with Three Dog Night. Smoking band too.
Great. I never saw them live, but I love the record. I still got some, actually.
Yeah, I write about Three Dog Night a lot, and that band still gets a lot of response. People love that band.
Yeah, it's
You know,
timeless.
yeah, timeless stuff. So now you mentioned Leonard Skinner. Now you were one of the original members, right? Or you were part of the
Not
band in the early
original. I
days?
was second generation. I went in, let's see, 72, if I remember right, and into 73. Not quite a year,
Okay,
but it was enough time to record a full album. At that time, it was going to be a new album because they didn't have a record out yet. Now, that album didn't come out until some years later because Ricky, our guitar player, had joined them on drums, actually. And then I got the call for bass. Blackfoot was having a hiccup and of the growing pains. So we were
sure.
kind of idle and had a chance to go play, and we did. But I really wanted to reform Blackfoot. So I went to Ricky one day and I said, I think we should, part ways because we're good friends. We love each other dearly. Let's get Charlie and Jackson back and reform Blackfoot because we want to rock a little bit harder. And he said, I agree. So we did. And So we reformed Blackfoot in 73 and never looked back.
Wow. So Blackfoot had formed before, and then you
Hmm.
left for a
And
while
yeah,
to play with Skynyrd.
69. Hmm.
Okay. Now, there's a lot of stories about those guys being a pretty rowdy bunch. Were those stories true? Was it a rowdy time, or was that just all making stuff up?
Well, some of it was manufactured. You're probably talking about Roddy mostly. He was a scrapper. He would
Mhm.
never back down. Um, he got knocked around a few times himself, but he could stand on his own 2 feet. But basically, he was a mellow guy, and
Mm.
everybody was. We used to come here to where I live today. It's my dad's hunting camp at the time, one room, and we'd squirrel hunt for 3 days, and we'd we'd cook and eat them, and then we'd go back to where we rehearsed in Jacksonville, it's 100 miles from here, and then we come back over here a month later, do the same thing. This is our getaway place. No telephone, no TV, no
Right.
radio, no clock, just lights and hot water.
So
What
you
a
guys,
time.
those are some amazing. That's an amazing story that you guys would go
Yeah,
out. You and Ronnie
magical
would come out.
times.
Wow. Um, I always wanted to know too the story about the band being named Leonard Skinner. Did you know that gym teacher that it was named after? Did you go to
I
school?
didn't know him personally, but I knew of him. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he was a high school gym teacher.
Yeah, that's what
Spelled
I heard.
differently. It was Lynyrd Skinner. Yeah. Now, Bob Burns, though, at one point in later years, kind of took credit for that. I forget his story, but it was believable. But I'm pretty sure it had to do with Lynyrd Skinner because he hated long hairs anyway. Yeah, that was late 60s,
Right.
70s. And you didn't just walk into any place you wanted to because you got looked down upon, like Bob Seger sang about. You
Sure.
always felt outnumbered, not quite safe, but you knew where to go and where not to go.
Now we're talking. This is the South, and so I would imagine that having long hair in the South in the late '60s is a different experience than having long hair and living in New York City in the '60s.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it had to be much more challenging, I guess.
Down here, yes, in the
Yeah.
South, especially the deep South. I mean, I'm in North Florida. I'm only 40 miles below Georgia border, kind of in the middle of the state.
Sure.
Um, yeah, very different time back then. They're like, I know that boy from somewhere. The face they remember, but they weren't sure I was who they thought I was.
Sure.
And word got around.
The
Then I
teenage
got known
years.
as the guy that drove the old 49 Ford black truck. Like, I'm sixth generation here
Yeah.
on this land. And yeah, that was the guy that drove the old Ford truck.
It's I was born in Manhattan and grew up in the Bronx, and I moved to Florida in the early '80s for a few months, and it was very, very different. It was difficult.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah. You
He
know,
probably thought we were a bunch of redneck idiots.
no, I just thought, it was tough being a New Yorker,
Yeah.
especially when I started to speak. That's when usually the attitude
Yeah.
towards me
Yeah.
changed.
We could spot you a mile away.
Yeah.
We moved to New York City in March of 1970. We finished our 6 month club residency. And we got up there and we looked up and we're like, oh my gosh, we've never seen a building over like 10, 12 stories tall.
Wow.
And here's the Empire State Building. Oh, we were just totally intimidated
Yeah.
and busy, busy, busy. And you walk down the street, and any given day, you would see movie stars, rock stars, and nobody paid attention.
Yeah.
It was not a big deal up there. They were
No,
just one of y'all, I guess we would say.
we're just trying to
Quite
get to
an
work.
exciting time up there.
Did you like it?
Yeah, it was exciting. So I was
Yeah.
saying that we lived 2 doors down from the Electric Circus, 2 blocks from the Fillmore East. The bitter end was down the other way, two
Yeah.
blocks. And oh, we were like kids in a candy store. Like everything was wow.
Yeah.
But then we eventually drifted out to New Jersey and got farther and farther west in the mountains. Then we felt more at home. But yeah, what a great experience. Met a lot of people in New York City.
Oh, yeah. You know, New York is not just New York City. Like you just said, you went over to Jersey and you saw all of that. Plus, we have upstate. You know, we have the Catskill
Oh yeah.
Mountains. You know,
Hmm.
and there's Long Island too, which is all beaches. So, um,
Oh yeah, nice.
what about the food? Did you enjoy the food in New York, or when you get back to New York, do you enjoy the food up here?
I remember one of the first days I ordered grits and eggs and bacon, and they said, "What?" And I thought everybody ate grits. I didn't know.
Yeah.
And that was a culture shock. And you couldn't explain what it was. They didn't have a clue.
No.
So couldn't get grits in New York City.
No. We got home fries.
But some of our parents would ship a box up to us in Manhattan every few weeks, and it would have grits.
Mhm.
A few things we couldn't, and they would maybe bake a cake and send that up in a big box that's padded well, hope it didn't spoil. Yeah, it was a whole new learning curve. But my gosh, we were 18 years old. It was just incredible.
And that's young. That's young to be away from home, to be so far
Yeah.
away,
Hmm.
right? In a very intimidating city. Yeah.
We turned, or I turned 19 that first, we got up there in March of 70, and I turned 19 in July that year. So, yeah, we were just, you know, we were school friends and all the same age. It was a great ride back then.
Yeah.
Great memories.
Yeah. So you got Blackfoot back together, and you had a pretty successful run there with Blackfoot.
Hmm.
Um, is there any Blackfoot album that you think stands out as like your favorite, or if you wanted to turn somebody on to the band Blackfoot, what album would you say, here's where you start?
Tomcatton.
Tom Catton. Okay. Great
Strikes was
record.
before. We had no reservations, then Flying High. Both combined maybe sold 50, 60,000. I mean, they came out, went with an anchor.
Yeah.
Strikes came out and went gold in 8 months and then eventually platinum.
Yeah.
Then we got back to where we could do more what we wanted to do, where the record company says, okay, you're having some success, so branch out. We just went back to what we wanted to do to begin with. Tom Catton was that in your face hard rock, and that would be my pick of the whole catalog. If I had one album to pick, you want to hear Blackfoot? That's Blackfoot. And the ones that follow were very good too. Tom Catton stands out.
Whenever I write something about Southern rock music or Southern rock songs, I can't tell you how many people will say, don't forget Blackfoot. You know, there
Wow.
are so many fans of the band. And I think what's impressive too is because a lot of your success was starting to come in the late 70s. And there was a lot of challenges there because music was changing dramatically.
Yeah, especially early 80s
Yeah. I mean,
when what became known as hair metal, um, that really changed everything a lot because it took a hold of anything preceding that. It was like the music of the times. So already in the early 80s, we were feeling that strain of trying to compete, doing what we had always done. And band after band was having like a smash hit, the hair bands.
yeah,
And
yeah.
the amazing thing is, there were so many great players back then in those bands. And this, I don't mean to diminish anybody's efforts, but I think what was lacking was the songwriting quality because those bands had some incredible players and they all had a monster hit or two. But we got through it. And by 86 though, it was coming to an end for us. So then the
Why was it
90s,
coming to an end? Is it you guys personally felt it was over, or why did you finish? Why did you
yeah,
leave?
what became the last record, the record company was trying to dictate what we should or should not record. And we'd always done what we felt was the best of what we had. We always had many songs left over. We would pick and choose. But because of that trend with a new type of rock, record company says you need to change your style of dress, your hairstyle. You
Mm.
need to write more commercial, more top 40. And we're like, we're doing what we do best, what we know how to do best. Yeah, but you got to get modern, get with the program. And it was a battle. And we spent months and months off and on in the studio to finally get that record out. And it didn't turn out to be, looking back, what I would be proud of to say our last album, because it was not the best. Still good music, but it was different because we were forced to listen more to the record company. If you didn't, you got dropped just like that. What
Yeah,
a shame.
that's a big challenge you face as a
Yeah,
songwriter.
broke our hearts.
Yeah. Yeah, that's got to be very difficult because once you start losing what is most organic, which is most genuine about
Yeah,
yourself,
exactly.
you know, the fan can hear that. People can hear that,
Oh, sure.
you know, and
We added a keyboard player too, the next to last album. It's Ken Hensley from Uriah Heep. Brilliant musician, great voice, played great guitar, especially slide, and of course, keyboards. That changed the sound of the band, and it got more commercial then. And then when Vertical Smiles started getting recorded, it kept falling more and more back in that commercial mode that we were not comfortable with. We still wanted to rock, and we had a lot of songs, but they got replaced. So we actually turned the album in to Atco, and 3 days before, the top brass sat in the studio and listened to the whole album. 3 days later, when they got back to New York, they said, "You need to replace side B." And we're like,
wow,
"Did I hear that correct? What do you mean?" "Yeah, side B's got to go, replace every song." That led us down a road of 8 months in and out of the studio, two, three songs at a time, trying to appease them instead of ourselves.
yeah,
I mean, it's not a bad record. There's some good stuff on it. But side B was great. Like we had it, and every song got replaced. Not by bad songs, just not what we thought were better songs.
sure. And that's got to be frustrating going
Very
into the studio.
frustrating. And then the
Almost kind of
writing
lose
was
your
on the
way,
wall. You
right?
couldn't please the record company.
Yeah, I mean, it's
We're not
sad
the
that,
only ones either. I mean, that happened to a lot of us at that time.
yeah, yeah, it's a common story. I hear that a lot from
Sure,
musicians.
of course.
Absolutely, where, you have people that shouldn't be making decisions for artists.
Hmm.
The artist understands what's real and what's not real. And, it's not an
You
easy
think
thing to
so?
write a song.
Yeah, we think so.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Right. But I mean, just writing a song, I guess for some people, it comes easier than others. How about for you? Does writing come easy or is it a
Not
struggle?
easy for me. Um, Jackson and Ricky were the principal songwriters. It just turned out to be that way. And when I would write by myself, it took a lot more effort on my part. And Jackson wrote a song every day of his life.
Hmm.
And I told somebody the other day that when he passed, there was a satchel full of little pieces of paper. It could be a matchbook cover, and then at the inside, a napkin, a bar napkin, just a lyric, two, three lines, hundreds of them.
Hmm.
He literally wrote a song every day of his life, I think. And I thought, he has thrown away more hits that nobody will ever hear that I'll ever begin to even construct a song, get the first verse done. He was that gifted, really a brilliant writer.
Yes.
So it didn't come easy, still doesn't come easy. Sometimes it starts with a lyric, sometimes it's music and you recall a lyric in a songbook. I don't like wake up in the middle of the night and go, wow, I got a great idea and get up and
Yeah.
play it and finish the song. No, it doesn't happen to
Sure.
me.
And I guess it could be painful sometimes, right? Trying to write. A lot of people,
Frustrating.
Yeah, frustrating. I guess
You
there's a
know it's
fine
there, you
line.
just can't put your finger on it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I guess if you have a deadline too, that's got to make it more, even more frustrating or more, challenging.
Yeah, after Blackfoot, Jackson and I wrote a lot together. That was a good time. Late '80s through the '90s and the earlier 2000s. Then I reformed Blackfoot in 2004 with Jackson and Charlie and me, and we had Bobby Barth from Axe fill in with what would have been Ricky's spot.
Mhm.
Great player and singer. And 6 months into it, Jackson died.
Oh, sorry to
And
hear that.
my gosh, that just broke me down.
Yeah.
He had a brain aneurysm, lay there 4 days and nights in ICU on a ventilator. But I was there when he took his last breath, and we always promised each other, I'll always be there for you.
And you were
And I
there.
was there for him. But yeah, what a loss of
Sure.
a friend, a brother since kindergarten. And we were brothers to the core. And Ricky too. We grew up together, the three of us.
It's tough when you lose people like that you grew up with
Oh yeah,
because, the friends that you grew up with as a kid, they're special. You
very
know,
special.
yeah.
And
They're
then
the only
those early
people.
years too, I always throw this in. When we were 10, we formed our first band. And we all took turns. We were all a drummer at one point or guitar player. A lot of times we never had a bass player. I didn't start playing bass until I formed Blackfoot. I
Oh,
almost formed a band that I was not going to be in. I'm like, wait a minute, who's going to play bass? And they said, well, you. And I went, I never played bass. They said, that's the only thing you never played. I said, good point. I'll
yeah.
learn. But Jackson was bass player in our early days, and I was a drummer sometimes. And then when he switched to drums full time, I switched to keyboards. Ricky played keyboards too. We all played everything. So you look back and you didn't know it at the moment, but all of that would come to fruition years down the road. Like, yeah, I know what you're doing because I used to play that instrument.
Sure.
Kind of cool.
That helps with the ranging and you hear the other parts, right? When you're writing
But
and
nobody ever liked Jackson. He was called Thunderfoot for a reason. He had that heavy foot.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are some people that just
But all,
have that.
all great memories.
Yeah, it sounds like great memories.
Mm-hmm.
So, but now you're making new memories with the new band. Now, Two Wolf's been around a few years now, right?
10
Is this
years.
10 years?
Mm-hmm.
Is this the first album that Two Wolf is releasing?
First released one, it was released June 6th. Um, in 2017, I think it was. It was a different lineup. Actually, I had Lance Lopez was in the first version in 2015
Okay.
for a couple of months, but he had a solo stuff going, so he left. And I knew Chris Bell from some days before or months before, so Chris joined the band, and then same thing. He had a lot to do, so he had to leave. So the other guitarist that formed the band originally with me, we just went three piece. So it was guitar, bass, and drums.
Okay.
And I kept thinking, boy, I'd sure like to have Lance and Chris both in the band at the same time. That would fulfill my lifelong dream. And I got it.
You did.
It happened. And I said, now we got the band. Because we had pretty much as the three-piece version gone our separate ways, still friends, just not really going anywhere. But we recorded a lot of music. We didn't release it. I got a closet out there on my porch, boxes stacked that high of CDs that'll never be sold,
Mhm.
shrink wrapped, boxes and boxes.
Yeah.
But anyway, finally got Chris and Lance, and that changed the band to the way it is now. What a wonderful thing. Brilliant player, great vocalist,
Yes.
which gets me off the hook. I'm not a singer. but I had to sing 2 songs on this new record. And I said, I'll promise you right now, I'll never do this again. Next time we record, one of you two guys are going to sing it. I don't want to get anywhere near that microphone. I'll do an ooh or an ah,
Sure.
or, a harmony,
Right.
but no more lead singing. I am not a lead singer.
You'd rather just play bass. That is bass your main, that's the main instrument. That's where you,
It became my main instrument.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's where
I
you feel
still love
most comfortable.
playing piano. I got one right there.
Okay.
I enjoy that.
Yeah. You classically trained piano or you just kind of
No,
picked it
no.
up on your own?
I took piano lessons. My mother gave me a ukulele at 5, and at 6 I started piano, and
Yeah. Okay.
I just started playing by ear. I mean, I learned to read music,
Sure.
and I wound up playing first chair sax in junior high and high school. And the last year of high school, I switched to drums, so I didn't have to carry a saxophone. Just carry a pair of drumsticks, stick that under your arm,
Yeah.
and eventually bass.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I made a living as a piano player and I was always happy when I would just show up and there'd be a piano there. I didn't have to carry anything, you know.
Yeah,
It's the drummer always has the most work, all those drums they got
you're
to carry,
right. Yeah, you're right.
you know.
The
But
setting up and taking down.
yeah, it's always the drummer.
I mean,
And
you got a, speaker cabinet and an amplifier. You're done. You
right.
plug the cord. Drums, you get the cymbal just right. This way,
Yeah.
the stand height if it got changed, and depending on the stage, whether it had carpet or it was wood, it was slippery, and poor drummers.
Yeah. It's a lot of
That's a
work.
lot of equipment to lug around.
Yes, it is. So I love this new album and I love the opening track, which is a song that you wrote. The opening song.
About time.
Yeah, I mean, keep
I mean,
on
go
moving.
figure.
That thing is cranking. And and this is where I thought when I read the promo about a modern hard rock edge, yeah, that is definitely, very modern sounding, very just straight ahead rock and roll. It doesn't really sound that southern. It sounds more just straight ahead rock.
Yeah, no pretense. It's just it's rock.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. That's
I
it.
I didn't know if we'd ever record that song. I had played a demo version of that for the guys 4 or 5 years earlier. Didn't sound anything like it does now. And they said, "Well, that's a cool tune." I said, B song, I wrote that a long time ago. But we got in the studio and started recording, and it just took on a whole new life.
Yeah. I
I
love the little
mean,
bass
thanks
line
to
that you
Chris
put
and
in the
Lance and
beginning.
Rusty. I just had to play bass.
Yeah. Well, I mean the little bass riff there at the beginning, it's just really it just fits perfectly. And you guys wrote that in A because when I listened to it, I heard it in A flat, but I guess that's you do the little
It
capo
would
thing.
be we were tuned down a half step.
Yeah, you guys tune
Yeah.
down a half step.
But
Piano players hate that. You have to-
oh my God, I think about that a lot. Yeah.
yes. I would have to play it in A flat as opposed to A major. You know,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
don't have
That's a
capos.
kiss of death right there.
Absolutely. So I don't want to hold you up too much longer. But
Too
I
good.
cool. I mean, I see that you're doing some of the rock cruises. How is it playing those rock cruises? Do you enjoy doing that?
My goodness, that's one of the greatest things ever happened because it's usually about 5 days. Every band plays 3 times.
Hmm.
So you get to do 3 shows in a row. And it is a dedicated audience.
Yeah.
You don't have, a lot of babies running up and down the aisle screaming and crying. It's, but it's casual, shorts, flip flops, no dress code. And it's just this big rock and roll audience. I mean, it's like 4,000 patrons on there. It's already sold out for next February. It sold out 2 weeks ago. This is number 13. I've been on, next year will be my 13th one in a row.
Wow. So you've done it for the last 13 years. You've done this. So you
I
must
mean,
really enjoy it.
only one. I mean, I don't know what that means. That and $5 will buy me a cup of coffee, but I've done the first 12 and already booked for 13. and 14.
I mean, you can't get a more captive audience, right?
Exactly. It's a dedicated audience,
Yeah.
and there's usually about 20 bands
Hmm.
that play three times. So you can pick the ones you like most. You're not going to like all of them, of course. It's hard for me to go see the ones I like, and
Yeah.
I'm friends with most of them because usually about 16 or 17 are long time proven classic rock bands. So we've been friends since the 70s. So you bump into each other like, hey man, how you doing?
Yeah.
Hadn't seen you in 20 years. And then you start swapping stories. Remember that time? And I'm shocked sometimes how memory serves some people better than it does me.
It's kind of like a high school reunion almost for rock and rollers.
It's a musician's reunion.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like a family reunion. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're all there on the same boat. And
Yeah. And it's a different lineup every year.
yeah,
Now, a few have been on two or three times, but even the ones that come on for the first time, most of the time I know them or most of them.
sure. And they treat you good. I mean, the
Oh,
quarters good, food.
treat you like the Beatles. Oh, yeah, nice rooms, nice cabins. The food's great.
Yeah.
The fans are the best.
Yeah.
And you can walk anywhere around the boat. You don't have to hide because you're there because you want to meet people and
Sure.
they let them meet you. So, pictures, autographs, we do meet and greets. We're always out in the public. We do not stay in our cabins.
You're giving people, fans, the time of their lives because those are memories for them now, right? That they're going to treasure forever.
And I'm a fan too, so I know what it's like. I'm still a fan of other bands.
Sure. That's why
You
you
know,
become a musician in the first place.
that ukulele.
No, I mean, that's why you become a musician, right? But I guess you just
Oh, yeah,
said,
why? Mhm.
yeah. But you became one, that ukulele, huh? That's what did it for you?
Now, once I learned two finger chords early and then I added the third finger. I don't know if I ever used a fourth or not. It's only four strings. I know I could use three fingers at the
Hmm.
same time, make two chords,
Yeah.
then
Okay.
went straight to piano. No, it's great with these bands because like the Doobie Brothers were on a couple of times, and we stand there and we just reminisce, and we remember venues we played, the year and circumstance, Kansas, um, Deep Purple.
Yeah.
The list goes on and on
And
and
those
on.
guys are great.
It,
Ian
oh
Pace is,
yeah,
he's such a nice guy. I spoke with him for like 2 hours and he was such a nice guy.
one from
Yeah.
Kansas.
No, Deep Purple, drummer, Deep Purple.
Oh, Ian.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Ian.
Ian's a great
Yeah.
guy. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's a great guy.
Real good guy. He said something funny to me. He said, in the old days, we used to tour to promote an album, but now we put out an album to promote the tour.
Exactly. It did like that.
Yeah, that is something. So I guess that's what you're doing now, right? You're going to be playing a lot of shows to promote this new record
Yeah,
to raise awareness of it. Because
yeah,
it's
flip
hard.
flop.
It's hard to sell records now, isn't it? It's hard to sell CDs.
Yeah, I talked to Brian Pereira yesterday, who's president and founder of Cleopatra,
Mm.
and he was telling me our numbers are going up rapidly. I guess on Spotify. I've never been on Spotify. I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's a
Never been
streaming
on
service.
TikTok, but I've
Yeah.
heard of it. He said your numbers are strong and it's growing quickly, which is good because you get people on there that, in 2 months they'll have 100,000 hits. That's like average.
Mm.
So when you get to 40 or 50, you're like, you guys you're moving up. So yeah, it's a different ball game. It's all math now. It's numbers game. It's
Yeah.
not how good you are. It's how many downloads are being bought by people or likes on Spotify. It's crazy.
It is crazy. It is very different, and what they pay on Spotify is horrible, but I guess that's just the way it is now. And,
Yeah.
um,
I
and
mean, the
it's
day that the single was released in early June was Keep On Moving. And by 3 o'clock that afternoon, the day of release, it was number one.
Yeah.
And I got really excited and I thought, yeah, but how long will that last? 24 hours? I mean, tomorrow, this time, we may be out of the top 10, we may be number 50 with an anchor. There's that much music every minute, every hour.
Yes. Yes.
But for a minute, we were number one, most added, most requested the day of release.
And it's only a small percentage of artists that get that minute, at least.
Yeah, exactly. Very small.
Yeah, very, very small. Because, like you said, there's so many people on there. And now it's getting really bad because now they have bands that don't even exist on there. There's like some huge AI band on there now that doesn't even exist.
I
Who
had a
was,
big discussion yesterday with Cleopatra about that.
yeah.
I was
So,
shocked.
yeah. But you know what? When you step on that stage and you're playing that music with your fire and ferocity, you guys definitely exist. And
Yeah,
people,
everything goes out the window. We're there
yes.
for that moment. We are living the dream.
Yeah, there it is, man. That's
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's got to be some feeling when you're standing on that stage, right? And you hear that crowd. That's what you live for, I'm assuming.
It's hard to describe. There's nothing else like it. It never gets old.
Yeah.
Especially
Yeah.
when you look out at the audience and you see a percentage of people that are mouthing the words like, wow, that was a record from a long time ago. It's a nice feeling.
Yeah. Something that you created, people are singing it back to you. That is that's really special, you
It
know.
is
That's
very special.
um,
I'm a grateful human being.
yeah.
I'm humbled by it to this day. Even to do autographs, I'm like, I don't want to bother you. Please bother me. That's what I'm here for. Where you from? How you doing? Of course.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great to hear that.
I mean, we're all like that in this band.
Yeah. You enjoying it playing with everybody in this band? It seems like you guys all really like each other on that stage.
The dream band. Yeah,
Yeah, because that's so important, right? You know, that
it is. And it's not an everyday occurrence. We know a lot of good bands that behind the scenes is friction,
sure.
tension. But when you, it's like Blackfoot, we were this cohesive unit. We didn't plan that. It just morphed into that quickly. But because, three of the four of us had grown up together, I mean, that was a given. We knew each other inside and out. But this band now, what I'll always call it the dream band. Post Blackfoot, this is the new dream band. I could not get anybody that could step in and replace any one of these guys. I know they're out there, but I'll never know
Doesn't matter because you have it now. You have your dream band.
them. Yeah.
And you're able to go on stage and you're able to hang out with these guys, play music and enjoy.
Yeah, we love each other. We respect each other, immense respect for each other, as it
Sure.
should be. And it's
Well,
effortless.
now,
You work on a song, you never get shot down or intimidated. Nobody ever says, "Oh, that sucks." And it's like, um, yeah, that's okay. How about can we try this one? I got an idea, and you go, yeah, and go, you're right. Yours is a better part. It's and you smile. You don't get your feelings hurt.
sure. Well, a lot of that too, I guess, is also just being a lot older now, you know, growing up. And I guess because when you're young, you know, when you're in your 20s and you're a musician, you're trying to make it big, ego tends to get in the way a lot. I'm assuming, you know, and
Sure.
and you wish, you know, you think back to those days and you go, oh, I wish I would have behaved differently, or I wish I would have did something differently, but you can't help it because I'm not just talking to you, I'm talking about musicians in general. Musicians in
Hmm.
general have huge egos. I mean, it's part of what you need to make it in the music business. You have to believe in yourself, and that can get in the way of getting along with each other in a band. So,
I know a lot of people that need their own door just to get their head through it, and they're great players. I'm like, dude, is that necessary?
that's a great way of saying it.
Yeah,
Are
can't
you
get
all
out of
living in
your own
Jacksonville?
way.
I'm sorry, I
Pardon?
didn't get. Are you all living in Jacksonville, the whole band, or are you from all different
No,
areas?
I'm 100 miles from Jacksonville.
Oh, okay.
This is ancestral lands that I'm sixth generation on.
Okay.
Been in my family since 1833,
Wow.
coming up on 200 years.
That's extraordinary.
I live that long. That's going to be a big day for me.
Yeah,
Our drummer lives near Gainesville. He's about 45, 50 minutes from here. And Chris and Lance live in Tennessee on opposite ends of Nashville.
sure.
Got two up there and two down here.
Okay. But still in the southern part of the United States,
Mm-hmm.
pretty much. Yeah.
Yep.
So that I'm sure makes things a little bit easier than if somebody was living in California or up
Oh,
in New
much
York.
easier that
Yeah.
they're in central time zone, but to me they're
Yeah.
excuse me, they're straight up
Okay.
Florida.
All right. So let me ask you one last question. What advice would you give to somebody young who's just trying to get into rock and roll music or become a musician?
I've never had a good answer for that. I
I'm sure you've
think
been asked that, but
if you're kind of born with it or you discover there's something a little different about you and it may be steering you towards music, pursue it. Um, it can be a lot of fun. It just depends on what degree you want to take it.
yeah.
No doubt for me, I knew when I was a kid, I went and saw the Beatles in 1964, I think it was, in Jacksonville. And I was sitting there with this girl, hoping they'd play I Want to Hold Your Hand so I could grab her hand. That'd be a good excuse, juvenile.
Little move there.
And toward the end of the show, I I said, that's what I want to be when I grow up. And she said, what? And I said, that. And I'm pointing to the stage. I said, what do you mean that? I said, that. I want to be in a band. She goes, you've been in a band since you were 10. I said, I know, but I want to be that, like big.
Yeah.
I had the drive for it as a kid,
Yeah.
always.
That's it right there. If only people who have that drive understand what that is.
I think you're kind of born with it to a degree. I don't think it's something that you necessarily can develop,
Yeah.
like go after. It's got to be there. The roots got to be there somewhere, I
It's in
think.
you. But it's that one, there's a moment like it happened for you, like it happened for a lot of people when they first saw the Beatles. It awakens.
Still my favorite band.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's cool to hear. I mean, I never saw them. They were, I was born in 61, so it was a little bit early for me.
Yeah,
I was watching Lost in Space in the 60s and TV shows.
me too. Yeah,
Um, but I mean, for me, I saw Led Zeppelin. When I saw Led Zeppelin, that was the moment.
I never saw them, darn it,
It
live. Never did.
it
I've met
was
Robert Plant twice,
okay, yeah.
once in London at the record company. And a couple of nights later, we were playing where he lived. I think it was Birmingham, England. He said, I'll come hear you play. I'm like, yeah, right. He did. He walked
Wow.
right in the back, said hello, went and sat down in the seats with everybody else, his wife and kids. After the show came back, he said, loved it and hope to see you again. Very nice.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of thrilling to have him and sitting in the audience, right, listening to you. This is
And
a
that was a big deal. I'm like, wow, that's Robert Plant.
yeah, yeah.
Cool guy.
It is, yeah. When you have someone like, I mean, I was playing piano in a club once, and there was Billy Joel watching me, and so
Wow.
I understand. You know,
Yeah, I looked over and John Entwistle was standing on the side of the stage. We were on tour with The Who, did
yeah,
like
that's right.
45 shows. And I looked over there one night and I went, oh my God. I just knew I was going to mess up. I was I was nervous as a cat.
Yeah.
And it was toward the end of the tour when I got to talk to him at an after show party. And he was just kind of over by himself. And I eased over there and I said, um, I don't want to bother you or anything. I just want to say hello. He goes, please bother me. Nobody will talk to me. I'm like, I will.
Oh,
And
that's
we
cool.
talked, 20 minutes and he's just as calm and had great things to say. He said, I see you over there a lot of times. I go up there and watch your band do two or three songs in a row. I said, well, I've seen you up there a couple of times. He said, I'm up there more than you know. I just
Wow.
have to get where the crowd doesn't see me to take attention away from you guys. So I appreciate that. They were all really gracious to us.
Wow. I mean, I've never heard anybody play bass like he did.
Oh, me either.
He played it like a guitar almost. I don't even know how to explain it, you know?
Magic fingers.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because I had saw Zeppelin in the 70s, but I think it was in the 90s. I actually saw Robert Plant open up for the Who. And it was very
Really?
strange. Yeah, it was even Pete Townshend. I remember mentioning something when they went on. He said, "Can you believe Robert Plant opened up for us?" You know, it was kind of bizarre, seeing that.
Yeah.
But yeah, seeing Zeppelin in the 70s was an extraordinary experience, and I wish I had seen the Beatles because I know there's so many musicians I talk to, you know, that have said that was the moment in time. Usually it's the Ed Sullivan Show, and
Oh, yeah.
they
Yeah.
saw
Of
him on the Ed Sullivan Show.
course.
And I had interviewed Billy Kramer, um,
Wow.
and he had told me that there was a time when John Lennon called him over to his house and said, "Listen to this new song I wrote." And Kramer had just recorded "Do You Want to Know a Secret," which went to number one. And he said, "Yeah, let him play the song called I Want to Hold Your Hand." And he said to
Golly.
yeah, and he said to Lennon, he said, "Can I have that one instead?" And he goes, "No, we're going to keep this one." And I'm thinking, this is like creation, you know. That's what's happening there.
That was another duo right there that just spit songs out every
Yeah,
day.
yeah.
No telling how many unreleased songs. Probably never even had demos made.
Just did them. Yeah,
There'll
they
be
just
wheelbarrows full of that stuff for them. My gosh,
yeah,
that's a lot of music. Back then and when the Beatles were out, it was nothing to have 13, 14 songs on an album. Now you can only have 22 minutes per side. So if you've got 5 minutes, I just went through this with a vinyl duplication and
sure.
did it right now. And you have to cut a song
Wow.
or chop a intro or an outro or something. I'm like, my gosh, that's not fair.
Yeah.
But the Beatles, nothing to have 12 to 14 tracks on a single album. All the songs like 2 minutes and 5 seconds.
And all phenomenal songs too.
Yeah,
Every single one of them.
yeah,
You
it'd
know?
be amazing if you could get in the vaults and listen to music that was demoed that never made it on a record.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd love that.
Yeah, that would be something. Who knows what we'll see next from their legacy. I'm not sure. But the anthology series were pretty nice to listen to and that they put out. And yeah,
Not a
they did
lot left,
inspire.
that era. I mean, they're dying every day.
Yeah, that's right. Well, Gregory, I wish you the best. I'm sorry, Greg. I called you Gregory.
That's all.
Greg, I wish you the best of luck with this new album. I'll make sure that, people that read my site, come to my site, know all about it. I'm enjoying it. I love great rock and roll records. I've been listening to it, ever since John sent it to me. And I think it's a great record and something that you should feel really good about.
I I can't even put into words how much I appreciate that.
Yeah.
A lot of people say, "Hey, I like your new record," and it doesn't sound real sincere.
No,
But when somebody adds a few more words to it, I know they mean it.
no, man.
But
I
we
was
work really hard. We're very proud of it. I'd play that for anybody, anywhere.
I was I was trying to figure out some of the songs. I was playing along with it. I mean, I don't have perfect pitch. I wouldn't have known that it was an A flat just by hearing it. I got to hit a couple of notes on the piano here
Yeah,
to hear that
and that's
first
a
chord.
true group effort. You could have replaced any one of us during the middle of that recording, would not have come out like it did. We gelled.
So you're going to be doing more shows to promote it?
Yeah,
What's
we were in Virginia last weekend. We've got show coming up in Ohio, um, Syracuse, New York,
Oh, okay, not too far.
Maggie Valley, North Carolina, and we got some shows between now and then and later toward the end of the year that are not deposited yet that will probably come through, but I won't say where they are. I don't want to jinx it. And we've actually got a few in the next year already.
Good. All
Yeah.
right. So,
We hope to get out there and play. What we'd love to do is just go on tour. You know, that's hard to do anymore.
hmm,
We used to live on a bus
yeah,
and we do 275, 300 dates a year. Never went home. You get home 2 days and right back out. So those days are gone. But still, be nice to go out and do at least a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, every weekend of the year.
sure.
Maybe an off day in the week at an outdoor festival in the summer. Getting tougher and tougher out there.
It's
So we'll
tougher to
take
do that.
all we can get. We love it.
And you know what? That's the best thing that you could say. I mean, you have the ability to still do it, to go out there and play and
Oh
still be in
yeah.
love with it, you
I
know?
mean, it's what I do. It's who I am. All
Yeah,
of us for that. I was looking out at my pond this morning and I've got two gators out there. So when I'm home, my enjoyment is wildlife. I've got every critter just about the country that lives somewhere around here in these thousands of acres.
mm,
It's I'm blessed to have that.
that's wonderful.
It doesn't belong to me, but I border like 304,000 acres.
Sure.
I
But
got
just
bear and deer and turkey and bobcat, panther, gators and otters, fox.
wow. And
It's
that's what you
every day.
love. You feel that's your environment. You just love that.
I coexist,
Yeah. That's awesome to
uh,
hear.
but I do it the right way,
Sure.
primitive way.
I find stuff like that very interesting. I grew up in the city. I grew up in the Bronx and Manhattan, so I lived a very different life. And every once in a while we get away, go to camp, and I'd be able to see stuff like
Hmm.
that. And so it's just wonderful that that's out there and seeing how you appreciate it, and that's all part of who you are.
Oh, it's every day. I
Yeah.
just look out and go, well, there's 10 turkeys standing right there. And there'll be like, a dozen little poults about like that
Yeah.
that had hatched. And on any given day, I see a lot of wildlife.
Yeah. And that's what
Ed
you love.
Nugent called me a few weeks ago one Friday morning, and he's a big time hunter. And we never talk about that. We
Really?
always we talk about bows and arrows mostly, and guns, but not hunting itself. And we rarely ever talk about music, and it's always been that way with him and me, since the '70s.
Wow.
You watch his podcast, boy, he's wide open.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
He fights for rights, and it's conservation. It's not about hunting and killing. It's conservation.
Sure.
I admire that about him.
I think I asked him once where his favorite restaurant was, and just because I was just interested to hear what he would say. And he just basically said the great outdoors.
The woods, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
That's what I would expect that for him. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I tend to always ask about food. I find that interesting. I like to hear that answer, and I knew I wasn't going to get, you
He's
know,
really a nice guy. We've
yeah.
been friends since I think 76 or 77, the
Oh, yeah.
first show we ever did. Then in the late 70s, early 80s, we did full tours, several with him. And he always treated us great. And we stayed in touch and run into each other here and there through the years. I think he's a truly great human being.
Yeah. Well, he was very friendly, and I saw him with Leonard Skynyrd in the 70s. They
Yeah.
they toured together.
Hmm.
And that was some show. That was,
They did some dates together not too many years ago, recent years.
oh, I didn't know that.
Hmm.
Okay. Yeah, they came to New York City at Madison Square Garden. Skinner opened and Nugent went on after them. And then out Long Island, I don't know if you're familiar with Long Island, the Nassau Coliseum, they reversed it where Skinner Nugent opened and Skinner played after them. So they were just going back and forth, I guess,
Yeah.
on that tour. They were sharing. I mean, this was I think 76. or 77. It was
That
around
would
that
be,
time.
yeah.
It was it was when Cat Scratch Fever was out, and I believe Street Survivors wasn't out yet because you know what happened there. I mean,
Hmm.
I think it was I think it was 76. But anyway, it was spectacular. And
I just was thinking when you mentioned the Coliseum up there, Madison Square Garden and all. I remember us playing at my father's place out on Long Island.
yeah, and Roslyn, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, that's a legendary club.
There was a rock pile.
I'm not, you mean a pile of rocks outside, you're saying? Is that what you're saying?
There was a club out there on the island
Oh,
called the
called Rock
Rock
Bottom.
Pile.
Was it called Rock Pile? Not Rock Bottoms?
Maybe it's Rock Bottom.
Yeah. There
Yeah.
was a lot of famous clubs. Hammerheads, Mad Hatter, uh, the OBIs. 70s had some really big nightclubs on Long Island.
I actually played the bitter end one time
Yeah, but then that
with
was
the
New York City.
Tokens.
Yeah.
Jay Siegel, yeah.
Yeah, the 70s were, I mean, as a musician who grew up in New York, we had worked 7 nights a week for years.
Oh,
Seven nights. You know, Monday nights you'd had a gig, you know, it was nonstop. And then sometimes on the weekends you'd have a Saturday afternoon gig and a Saturday night gig. So as a musician, you were always able to make a living. And as a piano player, you even had more opportunities.
yeah. Then you
Yeah.
had Allison Steele, the Night Angel from
Sure.
WNEW, I think it was.
Yeah, WNEW, all the
Oh,
legendary
wow.
DJs.
I was hoping I'd get that right.
Yes, Allison
Yeah.
Steele, yeah. There was a lot
Back
of
when
famous ones.
DJs had, a 4 hour span maybe, and each one did what they wanted to do. So
Yeah.
you got to pick your favorite times you listen to that station. If you like hard rock, if you like soft rock, whatever. But Alison Steele played, I think, a mix of everything, but she arranged it so well. And she had the sexiest voice I ever heard on radio.
Yes. Yes.
Never met her, but I
Yeah.
saw pictures of her.
That was a great station, NEW. I mean, that's what we grew up listening to.
Hmm.
With some of some of the DJs on there, with, like you just said, Vince Scelsa, Dave Herman. You listened for the music and you listened for them because the way they would talk about a song, the way they would talk about a band, and then the way they would interview somebody, it just was engaging.
Yeah.
You know.
What's different today? In radio, I'm talking about.
Sure. Oh
You know,
yeah.
everything is, I don't know, if it's a clear channel or whoever owns the majority of all the stations. Every station has the same playlist. I did an interview in Muscle Shoals 10 years ago, and guy said, we'll play some Blackfoot. I said, okay. And he said, what would you like to hear? And I named a few songs. He says, we don't have that one. And I looked, and there was a computer.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, there's no albums, there's no CDs. I
Yeah.
mean, I
What?
said, where do you get the music? He says, right here on the computer. So whatever I wanted to hear was not on their playlist from the parent company. And I thought, wow, it's automated now. Somebody selects a handful of material from a particular band's repertoire, and that's it.
Yeah.
They can't play an album cut that you may think is the best of all.
That's
What
what
a shame.
NEW did. You know, that's the whole idea behind deep tracks and because we all had, right, our favorite songs on albums.
Sure.
Songs that didn't always get the airplay on the major stations, but
Hmm.
you know, it's those special songs that, that's what my site is all about. It's about digging in to that stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
Digging into the deep tracks and the stuff that not everybody knows about. Because I think as musicians, all we want to do is just turn people on to music and make them feel better.
That was the original plan. And it worked.
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
it got incorporated, I say,
Yeah.
like the Walmart syndrome. Buy up all the little ones and you own it all. You can do what you want.
But you know what? When you walk on that stage and you play your music to that audience, you're in control. Nobody can tell you anything right there.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah. That's your moment, man.
Yeah.
When you control everything. And you got no DJ, you got no record executive saying, don't play this song. No, 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 no.
Yeah, exactly.
That's your moment.
You own the moment.
You own it, man. You
Yeah,
still own it. And you're going to keep
nothing
owning
like
it.
it.
It's nothing like it.
The best moments of my life have always, and I hope always will be, my favorite times of any day or night. When I get up the top of that step, my foot hits the stage, I'm home. I'm in my element. All the travel leading up to it, the delays, the equipment problems, and back when you had Union messing with you, once you started playing, like all that goes out the window.
That,
You're on stage, you're playing your music, and there's people out there screaming, going, "Yeah, yeah!"
that's what you live for.
That's what I live for.
Well, keep living for it, man.
Oh,
Keep
I
living
will.
for it. Greg, I really enjoyed my time with you, hanging out with you. I thank you for all the time you spent with me. This
My
is
pleasure.
this is a moment that I'm going to always remember. Chatting with you
Let's
for,
do it again.
yeah, absolutely, man. I think that would
Okay.
be fun. All
Hope so.
right. So thank
Okay.
you once again, Greg, and I see you down the road, man.
Good deal.
All right.
See you at a show.
All right, man. Take care,
Okay.
my brother. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.